Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Ari and Big Mike are proud to present the greatest podcast in the world. No snowflakes allowed and summer is coming.
This is the podcast that was started by two guys on cigar night. So, happy Kwanzaa, Mike.
And a Merry Festivus to you too.
Okay, just want to make sure we have the proper holiday greetings out of the way. So what do we got today?
Well, for those also who celebrate, Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah as well.
And Happy New Year.
Exactly, Happy New Year. And whatever other holidays we're missing right now, I hope it was a wonderful and beautiful one. You know, we here at the No Snowflakes Allowed podcast, we love everybody, just not idiots.
Well, almost everybody.
Not idiots. I don't like idiots. It doesn't matter which side of the aisle on, left or right, I just don't like idiots. You know? All right, so we got a good topic here today. We're gonna talk a little bit about John Oliver, and then we're gonna delve.
Wait, John Oliver? Do you mean the funny late night joke man?
Yeah, I don't find him that funny. I mean, half of his jokes are just insults, and the other half are just really bad. Like I don't know why people find him funny. It's each their own. I want to read a little something here.
What's it from?
I know it's from ifunny.com.
ifunny.com. Okay.
All right, so this is an anonymous poster. All right. The subject of John Oliver came up when a colleague, a fellow psychologist, and I were discussing politics a few months ago. Although we were both in agreement regarding the general shitlib inanity of the HBO show, my friend was surprised when I explained the real insidiousness of its unmistakably hypnotic nature and pacing. I ended up pulling up an episode or two off YouTube to show her what I meant. All the segments I've ever seen from the show follow the same repetitive format. Present some argumentation and facts for about 10 seconds, then quickly follow these up with a snarky quip, which themselves overwhelmingly take the form of complete non sequitur and otherwise absurd metaphor. Before any rational processing of the preceding argument can take place in the mind of the viewer, further telling you that the only beats or mental pauses in the show's pacing exist solely to highlight the approving laughter or applause of the studio audience. Repeat this basic formula without variation 20 to 40 times in a row, and you have one of the 12 to 20-minute segments that form the backbone of the show. The end effect is obviously not to deliver information, but rather to teach the viewers on a subconscious level to mentally associate derisive laughter with any person or opinion that is at odds with the narrative's take on the chosen issue. And it accomplishes this by maintaining a strict adherence to roughly 20-second cycle in which a stimulus is presented and a response is cued. This is the sense in which the show is fundamentally hypnotic in effect, even more so than its predecessors in genre, such as The Daily Show or Colbert. To my mind, Oliver's show is representative of the media's increasingly mastery of the methodologies of mass conditioning. It is, in fact, almost such a perfect technical accomplishment that I would almost have to admire it on technical grounds, which, moreover, is in the hands of entirely wrong people. The idea of that John Oliver and others are trying to do started off in a book called The Third Wave. You know, where the idea, it was written by Alvin Toffler, and he basically talked about how power in the post-industrial age was now the age of information, which is where we're at now, that there's going to be three types of power. One is wealth, one is knowledge, and the third would be violence. All right? What are we seeing right now? It's like knowledge. It's the lefties are trying to control the way we think and how we think and what we do. They want to talk about wealth. So what do? They knock down anybody who's got wealth who doesn't align themselves with them. Like you don't see the left going after Mark Cuban, but you do see him going after Elon Musk and Donald Trump. You see, it's like when you look at all these different things. Then to get even further on with the whole thing, it's like with violence, it's like the BLM, so on and so forth. Alvin Toffler laid out a plan on how to get your things across. Okay, great. But he wasn't evil in that sense. He was just pointing out where society is and human nature and where we're going to go. Now, again, let's go back into history. Let's talk about George Orwell, who wrote up about 1984, An Animal Farm, where it was all about control and manipulation. Right? Big Brother's always watching. These phrases that we talk about come from these books. we talk about them because they had such a powerful effect on society. And now, to bring it back to John Oliver, right? What is he really doing? Him and others like him are using the blueprints that were laid out in those books and that were laid out in others to really control the narrative.
If you think it goes back just to George Orwell or to Alan Toffler, you simply haven't watched enough comic opera.
I am the very model of a modern major general, life information, vegetable, animal, and mineral.
There's a patter song in the comic opera called The Pirates of Penzance. And the modern major general makes his entrance, and he's showing off his polish and how much he knows about animal and mineral and vegetable and all this stuff. And what's the joke about it is that with all this polish, he has completely neglected any military education. If you follow this man, he is going to lead you to your doom. John Oliver is the kind of guy who is going to lead you down the primrose path with the way he makes his jokes. And just like that patter song about the modern major general, he does his shtick so fast that you really don't have time to think about what he's actually saying.
Because he doesn't want context. He doesn't want context in what he's saying. He pulled in. I was just watching this video, which we'll post for y'all, where you talk about this thing where Donald Trump was talking about the border and was talking about illegal immigrants coming in and the effects it could possibly have on the United States. And so he gave a quote, and then what happens? He was like, "Oh my God, this similarly sounds like from Mein Kampf," and no, it doesn't. While the wording is similar. Hitler over there in talking about in Mein Kampf was talking about Ein Volk, one nation, the concept of eugenics.
Hitler was a veteran of the biggest losing war effort in the history of the world. He had been through these hellish trenches and was all for nothing. And this is not to excuse, not, God forbid, not to excuse a single thing that Hitler did or thought. But the notion that Hitlers are just things that pop up like mushrooms in your lawn after a rainstorm is absolutely absurd, because what he popped up from was a huge giant cataclysm of a war that completely transformed his society, and it was all for nothing. And these people were trying to make sense out of this awful thing rather than trying to move on from it. And there's not been a cataclysm like that in the past 80 years that can produce the kind of person who's going to try to make that kind of sense out of that kind of cataclysm. So the notion that Hitlers are under every bed and popping out from under every corner is so absurd that the fact that it's still used today by people who are depending on others' ignorance of history is just a testament to how easy it is to manipulate other people. And I think what we should do now is test out what the psychologist from iFunny says. Let's get a episode of Last Week Tonight, and let's see if what he says is true. Because he wrote that, but rather than believe it, let's put it to the test. Okay, so the December 18th episode of Last Week Tonight is about Elon Musk.
We're going to dive straight in with our main story tonight. This is our final show of the year, so we thought we'd focus on someone who's had a pretty big 12 months, Elon Musk. A man who can pull off...
Okay, so the first thing that happens is he just mentions the name Elon Musk, and you can already hear the titters of laughter from his audience. The name Elon Musk, not particularly funny.
A man who can pull off pretty much any bad guy in a movie look. There's a Lex Luthor posing for the cover of Metropolis Maniacs Monthly. There's Why No, Mr. Bond, I and my child bride expect you to die. There's I just bought your media company, I'm about to strip you for parts. There's Space's first racist sheriff. And finally, the less fuckable reimagining of Billy Zane's character in Titanic.
Okay, so let's see. He's been on camera for 35 seconds so far. He has come up with, like a half a dozen jokes. And each of them went by so fast that it's really not that easy to analyze what he said. So let's go through them one by one. First, he talks about, I and my child bride are going to watch you die. The picture he has is him and his girlfriend Grimes. As it turns out, I looked it up yesterday, Grimes is 35 years old. She is a decent amount younger than Elon Musk.
How old is Elon Musk?
He's in his 50s. Right. I mean, this is not exactly the hugest age gap relationship around. But to say that he's a criminal because he has a child bride is not accurate. Saying that he's a less effable version of Billy Zane from Titanic. Let's check out that joke for a moment. Okay. Elon Musk has dated many extremely good-looking women. Among those women was Amber Heard. And I have news for you.
You're shitting me on that.
Nope,
one.
I am not. I am absolutely not. He dated Amber Heard.
Well, that shit the bed.
And he was able he was able to keep her from doing all that bunny boiling business because she's not the kind of girlfriend for every man. I mean, you would think that Johnny Depp is the kind of guy who would get the best girl around and he'd be able to keep her in her place. No.
Yeah, but
Elon Musk was the guy who could do that.
A man who can pull off pretty much any bad guy in a movie look. There's a Lex Luthor posing for the cover of Metropolis Maniacs Monthly.
You know what that joke is? That joke is this thing that I don't like, namely Elon Musk, reminds me of this other thing that I don't like, namely comic book villain. This is not exactly the height of humor thing. One thing I don't like reminds me of this other thing I don't like. But he says it so quickly that it gets a laugh from his audience. And I believe he has a live studio audience, and they know when to laugh because they've been conditioned to his shtick.
Here's what I know about Elon Musk, and again, I'm going to be out there and say I don't know much. I know when I did a little research for this video and I started looking up Elon Musk, there were 3 things I found out about him from his former employees. 1, he wants to save the world. That's what he wants to do. He wants to help society in so many different ways. And these are from his former employees who are pissed as fuck at him. Thing number 2, he wants to be the guy that saves the world. He's got a huge ego and he wants to do it. And 3, he's maniacal in the way he goes about his businesses. You know, like he'll call people up at 3 o'clock in the morning about some small itty bitty detail, and you better answer that phone or I'll fire your ass. If he calls you, you better pick up that phone. Yeah. Like those are the 3 things that I saw over and over and over again, and the majority of that came from former employees by him. When you want to improve upon anything, there's a process of trial and error that you have to go through. Now, in any business you have certain costs that you're unaware of. Like if you own a delivery business in Manhattan, you know parking tickets are a cost of doing business, right? And it sucks, but that's life because, you just got to get the job done. When you're creating something, you're also going to destroy something at the same point. Not because you do it intentionally, but it happens. That's just what happens. Invention fixes a lot of stuff, but getting to that invention hurts a lot of things as well.
And the people doing the things the old way are going to have to adapt or be put out of business.
We're talking about somebody who wants to create and he wants to make the world better. Do I think he needs to have someone holding the reins on him? Yes. But I also think that he's doing more for people than people seem to realize.
Back in the early 2010s, when it was still possible to have a discussion on Facebook, all the shitlibs I grew up with, they always wanted to be at the very cutting edge of social thought. And it's funny that the actual cutting edge of thought is like the bleeding edge of technology. And here's a guy at the bleeding edge of technology, Elon Musk. And they hate him because he bought Twitter, now calls it X, and allows free speech. It's like free speech is so awful to the shitlibs. They only want the establishment voices to be heard, and anybody who would dare let filthy people like you and me speak and be heard is obviously an enemy of the people.
Iran has made news all year, from test launching the most powerful rocket ever built to just this week having to recall 2 million cars due to safety concerns.
On the issue of launching the most powerful rocket and his car having safety concerns. Now, the joke seems like everybody can drive, very, very few people can fly in a rocket. And rocket science is famously considered very, very difficult as a subject. But everybody can drive a car. Obviously, he's terrible at rocketry because of, oh, look how careless he is with his car. I mean, that's probably what he's trying to get across with that joke of his.
And by the way, before we go, apparently, which from a couple articles I read, it's the recall cars. They bring them in, they change out a microchip and send you on your way. There was like a faulty microchip or something. Like that's basically what it is.
Okay, so even more to my point, because these big technological challenges, you can classify them into a bunch of different ways. Putting up one purpose-built rocket and putting it into the sky is a completely different challenge than building, say, 5 million cars or something like that, and have each one of them turning out consistently and perfectly, and all the different parts working together just fine. So to imply that because he had some failure in one domain means he's inevitably going to fail in the other domain, again, it's using speed, it's using that hypnosis or whatever to make people laughing at somebody who's doing something absolutely exceptional over complete nonsense. Okay, let's go a little farther. I mean, so far, we are 1 minute into his monologue here, and he's been going joke after joke after joke after joke, which are only even theoretically funny because they're just coming at you so fast.
Of course, there is Twitter. He now calls it X, but the rest of us still call it Twitter. He officially acquired it 12 months ago, and since then it has been one fiasco after another, with the most recent coming when he tweeted his agreement with this anti-Semitic post, calling the Great Replacement Theory the actual truth.
John Oliver accusing somebody of anti-Semitism it's kind of rich. Kind of rich coming from a guy who believes that Israel doesn't really have a right to defend itself from terror. So that seems to me to be extremely hypocritical and rich. The other thing he does is he labels the notion that politicians are using unrestricted immigration to affect their to try to keep in power as the racist or anti-Semitic replacement theory. The thing is, this is not something that's new. It is something that has its place in academic political science and has had it in a place in academic political science for quite some time. There is a game theorist who applies game theory to political science. His name is Bruce Buena-Mesquita and Alastair Smith. They have a book. The academic treatment's called The Logic of Political Power, and the popular treatment is right here. It's called The Dictator's Handbook. And in it, they formulate 5 rules for getting and keeping political power. And rule number 2 is make sure that the interchangeables, the people who have no real voice in politics, they each get their one vote and none of that makes much of a difference. Those people, make sure that those people are as numerous as possible. And this is something that has been applied worldwide by politicians of every kind. So to say that politicians are something other than self-interested actors trying to get power, trying to keep power, and they will do whatever they have to the people to make sure they keep their job, is the only logical way of thinking about what politicians are. I mean, you're going to try to tell me that politicians are public servants who are just trying to do what the public good? Come on.
You know, the people who are in power want. And the thing that they want most of all is power. So to go back to Toffler, knowledge is power. If I can make you believe and I can make you think what I want you to think, then you're going to do it. You know, it's the whole idea of the left at this point is to say you need big government. And with big government, you get free shit. When you get free shit, you're going to want to keep us in line, in charge, because then you get more free shit. But somebody's got to pay the taxes for that free shit. So somewhere the whole system's going to implode. At the same point, you know, it's not necessarily a smaller government. There's a midpoint that we have to figure out. We have to figure out what is it that we need to do going forward. Because people like John Oliver on the left, right, are destroying this country. Same thing with people on the right. I'm not going to not. I want to be fair on that. Both sides are doing it. Both sides are poisoning the populace. And we're poisoning the populace for a reason. We want power. And if it doesn't happen through knowledge, it will happen through violence. I promise you that. You know, and that's the thing that we're looking at now. For the future, we're seeing that, like, these so-called, you know, we're seeing, what do they call them, the cities, the safe cities, whatever they call them, you know.
Sanctuary cities?
Sanctuary cities, right? What are you seeing with sanctuary cities? They're all overburdened, right? They don't have enough money for, you know, for medical and for food and for this. But now you've got all these people who aren't even paying taxes who are getting all these benefits. There's over 100,000 migrants living in New York City who are like filling up Penn Station and the streets and all sorts of shit, but they don't have the money to do anything with them. And why are you sending all these people to New York? New York used to be the crowning jewel of America. Now it's not. It's turned into a shithole. 30 years ago, it was the greatest city in the world. Now it's crap. Thank you. Thank you, lefties. And, oh, by the way, notice how all the people are now moving out of New York because they can't afford to live there because the taxes are so high. Good job. That's a sustainable future there. Way to destroy the city. All right. So thank you all for listening. I appreciate you all paying attention to this point. If you're still here, I would like you to subscribe, and I thank you to all those that are. You know, make sure to like the video and let other people know about us. So y'all have a good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Good night.